The battle went on for nearly 2 hours. The Japanese dropped bombs and torpedoes. The USS Medusa was one of the lucky ships that didn't get any major damage, but for weeks the crew tried repairing other ships. It was heartbreaking to see how many souls were lost.
Through the entire war, Mr. Shanaman wrote letters through email. He wrote to family, but he mainly wrote to Clarabelle. She wanted to write letters to a soldier, so his friend gave Clarabelle's friend Mr. Shanaman's name, but not where he was from. She talked about Pennsylvania, but Mr. Shanaman wrote back saying that he was from there too, and that their schools were rivals in baseball. He wrote for 3.5 years until he saw her for the first time. He had to write really small though because he had a very limited amount of writing space. When he got back home, they met and she wanted to get married, but Mr. Shanaman didn't want to and he was officially done with the service. After Pearl Harbor, he was part of the USS Wheaton crew. They traveled everywhere. On the way to Okinawa, Japan, they got into a really big typhoon. They were going 10 knots ahead, but when it ended, they were 20 miles behind from where they started. Mr. Shanaman was half steering in the back. It was like an elevator ride up and down because the waves were so rough. Also, every hour he had to go all the way down to the shaft alley and oil the bearings. It took a while to get down there, and it wasn't as rocky as on the top deck. It was nice until he would have to go back on top going around again. All he could see was water. At New Guinea, they got into a horrible thunderstorm at night. They all had to get off the top deck because of the lightning. In the morning, the captain steered the ship between some buoys. Apparently the buoys moved because of the storm, and the ship went full speed ahead. They heard a screech and a scrunch, which meant that the ship had run aground on a coral reef. They sat on the reef for 2 days until a tug got them and pulled them off. Also, when a ship runs aground, it has to go to the nearest dry dock it can, and as soon as possible. The only one close to them was Sydney.
When we pulled into Sydney, we looked up on the bank there, and there were girls up there waving. We thought they were waving at us, and finally one of the signalmen said, "Hey, that's semaphore." You know, that's the signalman could send messages that way. And the one of them looked, and here they had, "Meet me at the Trocadero."
They wondered what Trocadero could possibly be, so they asked some young kids. They told them that it was a movie theater with a dance band with a revolving stage. It was open all day and night.
While I was sitting there, a guy sat down alongside of me. We were talking there for a while, and all at once he looks at me. He said, "Are you from Lancaster, Pennsylvania?" You know, I look at him. I'm sitting in Australia, and he asked if I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I looked at him. He said, "I'm a preacher, and I preached in Lancaster County." And he said, "That Dutch accent I'll know anywhere."
When they were at Sasebo, Japan, they were one of the first Americans the civilians had seen. The citizens were told that the Americans would harm them, but they proved them wrong. Even though they could hardly understand each other, they communicated through a type of sign language. They gained trust from the children by giving them chocolate, and slowly everyone began trusting them, including the men. Mr. Shanaman was discharged on November 12, 1946. When he was finally done with his service, he went back home. Everyone had changed, but so had Mr. Shanaman. They were relatively the same people though. Plus this time, Mr. Shanaman could marry Clarabelle. He got married on November 24, 1946. We would like to thank Mr. Shanaman for his duty in the U.S. Navy and being a part of history.